Here's your host, Alex Garrett.
Welcome inside to the Alex Garrett Podcast Network, and today is ADA34, 34 years since the Americans with Disabilities Act. We'll be dropping a couple episodes today, one on sports and disability, as well as the Viscardi Voices of Viscardi is what I'll title that one. But here, in the sports section, let's start with Anthony Fitzgerald, the mastermind behind the wheelchair softball events tonight at Eisenhower Park for ADA 34. Americans with Disabilities Act turns 34, and here's how Anthony Fitzgerald is empowering not only adaptive athletes, but anybody with a disability through sports.
Oh, without question. Without question. It's one of our mantras. When we're at our shed in Eisenhower Park for the wheelchair softball team, we're getting people who are recently injured trying hand cycling. In other words, our motto is we're changing lives, one adaptive sport at a time.
I love that mantra, changing lives, one adaptive sport at a time. And Viscardi does an amazing job. You know, I've had Joe on before with the wheelchair basketball program, with all the different things they do. Are you involved with Viscardi too, or are you just friends with us? Like, do you still have involvement there as well?
Well, I used to have a work relationship with. I was the liaison to the Viscardi Center as a representative of New York State, and then I was fortunate enough to be invited down for sports night. And I have helped out. I've helped Joe a little bit in the past. I've been a referee for basketball and things like that. But I'm a big supporter and friend of the center, no doubt.
Absolutely, and I miss everybody. Although I love that they're able to do the hybrid. I guess they're in Monday, Wednesday, Thursday or something like that, which is great. I mean, that's, you gotta let these kids out of the house, right? So I'm glad they're able to do that for Viscardi in a safe way. And then, with your work, I do want to touch on that for a minute, because you are trying to help people adapt to speech and whatnot. So you're a vocational counselor. If you want to talk about that for a bit, I'd love to hear your story on that too, and what you do there.
Well, and this ties into the bigger picture of life, right? You want balance in your life, your work, your home life, work is not just about work. It's about having purpose, about being a productive, contributing member to society, right? That's who we are. So I've recently just retired, and, I'm jokingly thinking, I want to become a purpose fulfillment center, because you can help people with disabilities go to work, and that's what I do. I would prefer to help them find their careers, but I would love to help them find their purpose and their meaning in life. And that is a much bigger picture and encompasses, a lot more. And when people talk about, I just want to make a living, or it's my livelihood, that really demonstrates the importance of work as a part of life. So when you cut work out by shutting down the economy, which I understand why we did it and everything else, but you're really impacting people in a very, severe way that can have profound long-term effects.
Absolutely, and I'm sure you've changed many lives as a counselor. Hey, because I also love to talk about the news, and I know you do too. You've been posting a lot about the news lately and everything. I got to ask, Amy Coney Barrett's probably going to be confirmed today. How big of a role does the Supreme Court play in the disabled community? Do they help us at all?
Of course they help us. The ADA just had a big anniversary, right? And we just, I think we just hit 30 years, right? So, the legal system is very important for defending the civil rights law, which is what ADA basically is, to help people with disabilities in all aspects of their life, right? From access to government, access to private facilities, access to employment, access to transportation. I'm proud to say that right across the street from where I live, the Long Island Railroad Station here in Floral Park is about to have two brand new elevators completed. And that makes Manhattan just a hop, skip, and a jump away from me.
That is so awesome. And by the way, with the ADA, I always advise people, I don't know, maybe you get offended at the term, but I don't like it. I feel like sometimes people might use it to weaponize a business. I don't like that either. So there's got to be a balance. What did you say? Like, you got to be...
Oh, yeah. No. Of course. And that's, that's the beauty of a universal design or a universal approach. The disabled market or individuals with disabilities, we are consumers. And people want us to have access. So it's good for the economy. It's good for everyone. It's almost an insurance policy for society, because one day either someone you know or love will be injured, or you yourself will age to the point where you need more accessible, a more accessible environment, right?
Absolutely.
So, but at the same time, we can't, excuse the pun, cut the legs out from small businesses and have them incur large expenses. But, the average reasonable accommodation is under like $300. So we're not going to really put anyone out. And the demand on larger corporations is exactly that. It's commensurate with the size of the corporation. So the bigger they are, yes, the more the demands the ADA make upon them to make everything fair and level the playing field.
One other thing, and I think adaptation, as I'm talking about this, I feel like we all have to work to smash stigmas, because there are those that still exist out there. So I would say adapting even to the environment around you, isn't that going to help you smash stigmas, because it'll help you get more involved with the able-bodied community and whatnot?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I think of stigmas, they're definitely still out there, and it's our duty and responsibility to crush them as best we can. Words are powerful, right? I think Victor Calisi, the commissioner, recently wrote a good article talking about the power of words and how important it is to use the right words. So, yeah, I mean, amongst ourselves on the team, on the sports team, we use some kind of off-color humor to add levity to the situation, to make us laugh a little bit at ourselves and our disabilities, which makes that cross a little easier to bear and to carry when you can laugh at it, even if it's for a split second. But we make sure we're careful around other people, when we're around able-bodied or non-disabled, not to use those kind of jokes, because we don't want them to think it's okay or commonplace.
Very true.
By all means, we want the world to be a better place.
And but no, it's true. And that's the other thing about the community, is that we joke around with each other. I think people who are on the outside looking in don't realize that, or don't think. Well, A, sometimes I feel like they don't think we have humor unless we talk to them. And B, it's just like they really don't know the internal of the community, that we all bust each other's chops anyway. So there's that.
Yeah, it's therapeutic.
Very
therapeutic much. Ball breaking, you call
it. I love it. Anthony, well, and actually this ties into another thing I talked about yesterday, is that for me, when I see someone look at me, I don't care, but I just see that it's like, I gotta say hi, or they're gonna think I'm like just a robot on wheels. That's my mentality. So I don't know, I just feel like saying hi to people is very important if you have a different thing than most people. One last thing, though. One thing that people don't know about you, Anthony Fitzgerald.
Yeah, you say hi to people. I mean, right, there used to be a stereotype about New Yorkers where we're not that friendly, or we don't say hi. I go out of my way to say hi to people. You're right, because sometimes they just stare at us like, wow, you're in a wheelchair. What's up? And I just smile and I say, how you doing? And immediately I
want them to know that I'm a person. I'm not just some robot on wheels. I'm a person that talks to people, So that's kind of why I do it too.
Yeah, but your form of locomotion through New York City must get a lot of looks where don't use your crutch tips with a rollerblade. Right?
Yeah, I still do. And by the way, I've learned to actually lift up my wheel crutches and just roll on one leg. I mean, the balancing is just fun. I don't know how I started to do that, but I just do that now for multiple blocks, lifting up my crutches and
going.
So.
Well, that's great training for sled hockey, and that we're going to recruit you.
Guys, they've been trying to get me to, my listeners, they've been trying to do this for years. It's happening again. That's okay. I want to do it, though. I want to find time.
I'm bringing you in, Alex. I'm bringing you in now. As far as what, you want to know one last thing about me that's unique?
Well, that no one knows about, though, that you've not told anybody, but you'd want to reveal on this podcast.
Wow, you're really... Oh, I'm an aspiring guitar player. More like a hack. How's that?
Well, let us know when you're going to play, man, and I'll come out and support that too. It's good that you have all these things juggling.
Oh, I just thought of something better. My bucket list dream is to sing the national anthem before an Islander game. There you go.
That's a little bit from Anthony Fitzgerald, and again tonight, 5:30, the ADA softball game will take place at Eisenhower Park. Now, how about accessibility at the ballpark or arena? Well, Friendly Like Me is a great outlet, and we've been in contact about doing more work together. But here's our first conversation where Friendly Like Me talks to me about how they are improving accessibility throughout all our stadiums and arenas across the country. You know, the ADA active 30 plus years ago, we can't just rest on that from 30 years ago.
We can't. And there are a lot of people, of course, working to improve that. But, the government moves slow and enforcement doesn't exist. And that's kind of why we think that by helping to bypass that would be getting companies to want to be more accessible, right? To see that if they spend $1, they're going to earn $5, and to start promoting that. I think Dave was saying on a game he watched last night, right before the game, they did 60 seconds on Culture City, which has got the sensory bags and is doing such incredible work. I think that when we can convince more businesses that they will make more money, it'll be better than trying to work enforcement.
Do you guys follow renovations? So like the Cubs have undergone renovations at Wrigley Field, and the Yankees continue to renovate as well. And sometimes, unfortunately, it means taking away ADA seating, which has happened in multiple ballparks. But do you follow renovations in that kind of regard of, okay, how are they protecting ADA seating after renovations?
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because when Yankee Stadium was rebuilt in 2009, did you feel like they lost disability seating in that?
So to be honest, I did not. And I tell you, there's still a lot more. But I know over the years, they've done more renovation to the stadium, which has taken away some seating. And I think they've tried to put it back elsewhere. But it has happened. It's been documented that, yes, they took away some of the seating, which all fairness, I do have a connection to the Yankees. So I will say they are accessible. But when you hear that they took away a few parts, it's a little disheartening,
Yeah, well, I think part of that is also showing the numbers, right? And if people don't even know you have accessible seating available, they may not use it. You may not know, right, how important it is to your bottom line. And I think that's a case that we can make together, right? I think part of it with the disability movement is showing up with a unified voice. Elements of disability and accessibility movements are often pretty fragmented, and I think this is something that we can kind of all agree on, is that we want to know before we go if we can fit or get in or enjoy it. And we also want people to consider it when they're designing. I mean, what I do know about the Yankees is that they worked with the DOJ and other groups to design for fans who are disabled in that revamp. And they put together—
That's amazing.
They put together a really good guide for guests with disabilities that's on the website. And, even in that, you'll look at the stadium and it's not clear if there are any seats that, with arms that come up or down. And this is an example of how accessibility is always evolving. You can't rest on the 30-year-old law. Now you need to think about, are there multiple ways for someone to get a ticket? voice-enabled ticket machines for someone that's low vision, or, putting in valet parking for people that maybe need to walk a little bit less, better wayfinding, especially as technology evolves. And I think that's the frustration that people with disabilities have, is that these kinds of things are taken as only when we're doing construction or only because we were told to. But it's that ongoing work that makes a place really accessible, and ongoing dissemination of information about that place's accessibility is a big part of that.
This section I would call bifida and baseball, spina bifida and baseball, because two of my friends, Derek, who has Derek's Bags, and Danny Voice, have used baseball and love baseball to get through the pain of their disability, and it's empowered them. We start with Danny Voice. Does baseball help you take your mind off the pain, if you will?
Not in the past year, no. Yeah, usually not. Usually not. That's what I'm doing.
Because they're painful to watch, but at least it's an outlet, and
it is. That's why I started. That's why I started watching baseball like a decade ago. Was to help me cope with what I was dealing with at the time, and after I dealt with those issues, I was actually getting into the game, so I kept watching painfully watching. But yeah, but in the past year or so, I haven't really watched a lot of baseball, especially this year, because of how bad the Mets have been doing.
Danny also gets his mind off things with a lot of memes. I know you're like a meme king over there, Danny. You love your memes, that's for sure.
Yeah. You can thank Liz for that.
And you two have some great back and forth, so that's awesome. And to that point, socialization, going through this, is so vital, isn't it?
Oh, definitely.
I know Liz, and you and Liz have kind of saved each other from a lot, and that's a testament to your friendship. But overall, socialization has really helped you get through a lot of this.
Yep. And it really has. I have a great support group with you, Liz, and a lot of other friends of mine, and my family, of course.
We haven't done a check-in since his passing, really, in that regard. But does Max weigh on your mind every day? Because I feel like he weighs on mine a lot. Even if it's subconsciously, he's always there with us,
The dude won't leave me alone. Yeah, I can feel him. I can always feel him around me. Like I said, the dude won't leave me alone, which is a good thing. But yeah,
he will always be a character. He just had this. He was one of the best storytellers. I gotta say, he just told the best stories, and the way he would facial expressions and animation.
Yeah.
Oh, miss that kid. And we live on in his memory, and I think what he could also teach us is to advocate, right? So he was a big advocate for himself.
Yeah, he was.
Right up to the end. And I know you and I have had our parents, and thank God for them, sort of advocating, but sometimes it's up to us too. I mean, when I was in the hospital, Danny, I was walking around asking for different supplies needed that time. And I don't know if you found yourself advocating that way.
Yeah, I have. Thank God for my mom, because she's my biggest advocate. But over the years, I started advocating for myself in the hospital setting. So now I'm used to when my mom isn't there in the hospital with me, I'm used to speaking up for myself and saying, hey, I need this, or hey, what's going on with whatever. And what are we doing about A, B, and C, and all that.
I mean, the only way to have health is when you're involved in your own health, right? I think we've both been learning that every step of the way. And if I could just say, I feel like some people are just letting the doctors tell them what to do. I hate to say it that way, but it just seems like they let them guide, which isn't bad, but sometimes you can ask the questions. It's not bad to ask questions.
Of course, we should listen to our doctors and nurses, especially the nurses, because they're the ones that really take care of us. But at the same time, we know our bodies better than anyone else, so we need to speak up when we know there's an issue.
Derek, I gotta go back to baseball though, because obviously it's your sport, it's what got you through, and there's such a baseball community out there. How does that help you get through something like this?
Oh, I'll even take it a step further. Baseball, it has always gotten me through difficult things through my life. Even since I was a little kid. It whether you go to a game or you're watching it on TV or listening to it on the radio for that now 2.5, 2 hours, 45 minutes. You could just watch or listen to a game and you don't have to worry. You could just forget everything that is bothering you for those 2.5 hours. It is great. It's definitely great.
You and I that we're able to bring a unique perspective to the Rep BX community, if you will, and whatnot. Because as adaptive athletes or people with disabilities, I feel like that brings a different perspective to these communities. So I think it's pretty cool to be able to blend your adaptability and your love of baseball and sports into one, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I agree. I know I sometimes think twice about posting on Twitter about like let's go Yankees on his tweet or just sharing that like if I'm at a Yankee game or something like that. But yeah, it's it's great to blend both things.
Well, because when you post about what you're going through, right, then that
Yeah.
educates people who don't have a disability. Oh, wow, okay, we can learn from Derek. And that is such a powerful, that's the best part of the platform is to be able to educate through our pages.
I agree with you, and I know I haven't like spoken about spina bifida and having it and what it's like to um what's like day to day to have it. Um, Spina Bifida Awareness Month is in October, so I used to be like more of a private person, but I do plan on sharing more of what it's like personally to go what it's like day to day personally to what it's like to have spina bifida, uh, stuff like that. And going back to what I was starting to deal with back in December, I have shared that a little bit as well because I think um not to sound full of myself, but I had posted on Twitter saying like, "Oh, please be pro health," because I don't want anybody going through what I went through because I think like for a while I was beating myself up in the hospital and then in nursing home, and then when I got back home here I was beating myself up because uh the wound that I had on my heel that last year, that the flesh-eating bacteria got in somehow. Um, if I got that treated soon, I feel like if I got that treated sooner, I wouldn't be going through what I'm going through, what I went through, and what I'm still going through. But at the same time, I feel like I should, in a way, if I have the platform that I have on Twitter and through the business I have, to warn people and to kind of plead with people, take care of yourselves, because I don't want people to go through what I've gone through. And if I could just add, I saw it yesterday. I forget the golfer's name. I think the guy's name John Ram. I saw that he had to pull out of the U.S. Open, I think, because he had an infected foot. And then like right away, I saw that once I saw that, I felt like I needed to say something like, "Oh, please be pro health," and just share a little bit of what I went through.
Also wanted to play this for you with Jacob Barrett. Also wanted to air this for 88A. Jacob Barringer talking about not only being really an influencer in the Rep BX community, but also how he's adapted to his own challenges in life.
Jacob, I see that you have the Twitter handle Jacob B Speaks. So you like to talk, I could tell. Would you ever do a podcast? I mean, would you ever host one? Would you ever want to incorporate your fan base through that as well?
Well, Jacob B Speaks, that has a funny story behind it. But as far as podcasting, I know Inside the Diamonds, they've been kicking around the idea of putting out a podcast a couple times a week. And I told them, like, I'm not sure if I would host it, but I'd be happy to come on and join and give some, an analyst perspective or whatever, or a Yankee fan's perspective on things. So I'm always happy to hop on and do that. The handle actually came from me being a public speaker, but just through my cancer survivorship story. And I've done a lot of stuff with that. So just getting in front of people, telling my story, supporting different charity organizations. So whenever I first started my Twitter account, it wasn't even going to be a Yankee account. It was about me and my public speaking, and the PM was because it was my job title at the time as a product manager. But I've kept it because now I just keep it because I'm an insomniac. So it's just stuck throughout all that time.
Well, tell us about that story, because obviously maybe people might glance at your profile and see that, but maybe they don't know the whole story. So tell us about it, if you don't mind.
Are you talking about the cancer?
The cancer survivor? Yeah, because
yeah.
I've had family members with cancer. I mean, we've all been impacted, but here you are surviving it. Tell us about your survival story.
Yeah, I could go into this for a long time, so I'll give you the Cliff Notes version. But so I'm going to be 16 years out, coming out in May. So I was 11 years old in 2007. I was diagnosed on Halloween of that year with stage 4 Burkitt's lymphoma. So it was an extremely rare form of the disease, and the prospects weren't good. The prognosis wasn't very good, especially for me. So they did a bit of an experimental treatment, gave me some experimental drugs with it, hit it as hard as they could, and then by May of 2008, I was cancer free. And just to avoid going into all the gory, crazy details of all of that, I've always thought that, you think of a cancer diagnosis and you think of something bad. You think of it as being a curse. Why am I cursed with this? Well, I had never thought of it that way, because at 11 years old, I was young enough to think that, hey, I'm going to be okay, but old enough to know what was going on. And for me, I just I never thought it was a curse. I now at this stage of my life, I just think it was kind of a blessing, because without me going through that experience, I wouldn't have met the people I have, been able to have a platform to talk about my experience, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to be so connected with these charities that I'm involved with and have the perspectives that I have. So, because whenever I was going through it, I came out, but there's still the ancillary effects of treatment. Now that I'm out of treatment, I have an immune system disorder that I have to, basically give myself an artificial immunoglobulin infusion every 4 weeks or so, just so that I don't have to live in a bubble like a bubble boy. But it's just
adapting, right?
It's just adapting.
I have that feature called Adapting with Alex Garrett because personally, I was born with one leg and I never felt any effects of that. And I just think, we got to hear stories like yours to inspire others that, hey, you know what? They can get through it too. Wouldn't you agree? Like that's why you did public speaking, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was really a big part of it, and a lot of that was just about connecting with people. It's funny because whenever you have a disability or if you have a cancer diagnosis, you kind of form your own tight-knit group with people that are like you, and it was fun. It was just great to hear their stories too, because I would always have other people speaking. We would kind of have a big seminar or something, and other people would be speaking and learning from their experiences too, because no experience is the same. So it's always great to be able to share that perspective, connect with people, and really motivate people to try and make a difference, because that's one thing about cancer. It affects everybody. Everybody has either had it or knows somebody that has it, is related to somebody that has it, and it's something that people definitely want to give a positive impact for. So if I can inspire people, if I can just motivate them to be a better version of themselves, I've done my job and I'm happy with that.
Even Mike Vaccarro, who we just talked to of the New York Post, has had to adapt to having one leg up on sports.
All right. Well, one of my friends and colleagues who helps me do the show every week, Lou Terminello, actually brought this to my attention that I researched it. This is also an adaptability podcast because you've had to adapt to something that makes you have one leg up on sports. See, it's all synchronistic here, Mike. And I know you've gone public with it, but yeah, share your story with me about how you have one leg and you had an amputation and then you're back on the golf course. Tell us your story a little bit.
Yeah, happy to do that, Alex. Look, I played basketball most of my life. Sprained my ankle, both ankles probably 30, 40 times. In my day, there was no such thing as going to rehab or going to, physical therapy or anything. There was mice on it. You probably played earlier than you should because you wanted to play. And that helped weaken it. Over time, I developed type 2 diabetes, which, makes your feet vulnerable. That didn't help. And then about 2 years ago, I started to become susceptible to infections. And that's ultimately what caused my ankle to develop a condition called Charcot, which basically, long and the short, is that your ankle disappears. Your bone disintegrates, your ligaments go away, and it can be reversed if you catch it early enough. But that didn't happen with me. Basically, I had no ankle in my left foot, and I tried scraping around on very heavy walking boots. It was not comfortable, and ultimately, my podiatrist put it in my mind that this might be something I wanted to do down the road. And then that decision was made for me because I got a really bad infection in that leg, August 2022. So I had it removed in August of 22. The next day, my doctor said, what's your one goal? What do you want to focus on in your recovery? And I said, I'd like to play golf again. He said, I think you can probably do that by let's say next June. And sure enough, after spending a lot of time with some wonderful people at Kessler Rehabilitation Center, in North Jersey, a year later, in June, I went out and I shot. I played 9 holes, maybe took 20 shots, and it was pretty glorious. And look, I'm up and around now. I'm able to pretty much have my life back to where it was, probably in a better spot than it was the last couple of years before the amputation. I love talking about it to people who are maybe in a position where they might have to consider it. I'm very open to talking to people who just are curious about it or fascinated by it. Certainly, I'm interested in our discussion here because you've been able to succeed and prosper with the challenges you were given. So look, I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I guess if you asked me yes or no, would you like to have two legs? I'd probably answer yes, because it's just, I don't know, I just would. But, I've also learned that this isn't so bad either. I can get around, I can figure things out. If I'm not going to ever run that 10K that I never was going to run anyway, I guess I'll live with that. But I can play golf. I can, walk into press boxes again. I can do, I can have my life back for the most part. And that's the.
Well, we gotta link up at a game. Tell me what games you're going to, and I'd love to meet up, because this would be great to talk with you in person too. And I'll teach you to rollerblade. How about that? That would be pretty cool. You mentioned prosthetics, by the way. So tell us about that. Were you fitted for? The fitting process is always kind of weird, because I got to do the casting and all that and everything. Tell us about the process for getting the prosthetic.
Yeah, I mean, so right there toward the end of my first stay in rehab, which was 19 days long, they fit me for a temporary prosthetic, which is what I was going to learn to walk on, and I got that about 6 weeks later. It was grossly uncomfortable at first, and I couldn't take more than 3 steps at a time at first without feeling I was going to go over sideways. But you adjust, you learn. After you first have your leg amputated, your leg, they need your stump to shrink to be able to fit into a permanent prosthetic. And that's what happened to me. I was on the temporary one for about 9-10 months. And once the residual limb got to the size they figured would be the standard size for the rest of my life, I got fitted for a permanent one. This one has kind of an electronic ankle, so my gait's a little more natural. And I've had that since. In fact, on Sunday it'll be a year that I have the.
Wow! Happy anniversary, right? And you're back on the golf course. I know that's a huge deal for you as well.
It is. Look, I mean, I wasn't that good to begin with. At my peak, when I was, in my early 40s, maybe I was a 12 or 13. By the time I was done, it was probably a 20. And now, of course, I don't care about handicaps. I'm not going into the sand trap. I'm not going on to elevated greens. I'm not going on to elevated tees. I'm just going to try to hit the ball and have a good day with my friends. I don't care what my score is. I just care that I keep the ball in the air. And the fact of the matter is that, in a lot of ways, believe it or not, now I don't hit the ball nearly as far as I used to, but I hit it straight as a pin. I know where it's going. And so, if every time I get up there, I can knock the ball forward 140, 160 yards. Play until they take the clubs out of my hands.
Speaking of amputees, let's catch up with Mary Johnston. She was on just not too long ago, and we talked about her running career as an amputee.
You've been running your whole life, and this is what I want to talk about, because you've been running, and now, since you lost your leg, you continue to run. So tell us about the adaptation, running with two versus the one, and when you did lose a leg, were you worried you wouldn't be able to run again, type of thing?
Sure. So when I woke up, I had no leg. I also lost half of my hand, and it took me a few months to even be able to walk again. And the doctors told me that I wouldn't run, which was not an acceptable answer for me. I'm not someone who takes a no. I just knew that wasn't the right answer. So I went out right away to find a way that I could run, because I knew I was going to run again. And I think that's true really about anything in life. Anyone who's listening to this, if you want to run a half marathon, you can do it. If you set your mind to do something, you can do it. And so I set my mind to that I was going to run. I didn't know I was going to run a half marathon or a marathon one day, but.
And you did run a marathon. Tell us about that experience.
Not yet. I'm signed up for this November. That'll be my first one here in Europe.
We're gonna have to have you back on. Maybe even cover you on the course or something like that. That'd be cool to cover your journey on the marathon course. That would be pretty fun. We'll have to talk about that off air. But on the air, tell us about how you did lose your leg, because I did post our picture from Fort Washington. We got a lot of good reactions. So tell people who might have seen the picture how you lost your leg, if you don't mind.
Sure. I was a pedestrian walking, and I got hit by a train. So it was a traumatic accident. A lot of my friends were amputees. Some might be from cancer. Some might be congenital. They were born that way. Some People are accidents, car accidents, motorcycles, trains. So my accident happened when I was 23 years old, which makes it a little bit harder to learn how to walk and run when you're already an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's easier when you're a kid to learn, but just because something is harder doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. And so I took on the challenge of learning how to run. And even I hurt my head in the accident. I had a traumatic brain injury, but I took on the challenge of going back to school because I wanted to just keep making myself stronger.
Not only did you go back to school, you went to St. John's University Law School. Now, we'll get into that in a minute because I love St. John's campus, and that's where it is, right? That it's on the campus, St. John's, great place in Utopia, Queens. But readjusting all that, going back to school, and how accepting were you by your peers after all that? Were they just so supportive and whatnot?
Yes, actually, what I did first, I have my background, but was before I went back to school, I went back to teaching, and behind me is a little picture of my classroom. I was teaching 5th grade, and that is the best because kids won't lie to you. If they ask you what's up, and they don't mean any harm when you just look different. And it is kind of very therapeutic to be able to explain, yes, my leg is different, but isn't it cool that I use this prosthetic leg and it helps me to walk and it helps me to run? And so that was very helpful for me.
I've gone through many prosthetics and of course the prosthetic drew me also because I've gone through many of them as a kid, not so much as an adult because the rollerblade just kind of sufficed. That's the way I've been since 8 years old, rollerblading around. But for you, how was the fitting? Was it uncomfortable at times? How many did you go through to get it right for your running, for your walk? Do you have different prosthetics?
I have one for walking and one for running. I'm thinking a lot. Every time I would gain or lose a little bit of weight or things would change, a lot of fitting to get things right. Yeah.
And so now you're teaching that is just so cool. And you went to law school. Tell us about that experience as well.
I'm going to graduate in a few weeks. So
that's cool. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's been difficult, but the St. John's community is really fantastic. There were a lot of New Yorkers here. There's a lot of locals, and I'm a New Yorker, born and raised. So it's just it's a really strong community.
And last but not least, it is the Olympics. So why not talk with Lou Terminello about what he thinks of the Paralympics, as well as where people with disabilities and sports can continue to grow.
Lou, thanks for your insight on all of this. And, it is ADA anniversary day tomorrow and ADA week this week. Shout out to Jim Abbott, who, of course, threw that no-hitter with one arm. And, I often hope more people with disabilities. I know the guy in Seattle had played one arm as well. I mean, there's some strides being made, but maybe we can get more pro athletes who have a disability in the mix. What do you think?
Well, I think with obviously technology and equipment to help athletes who have, say, an arm that's not as developed, that they're born with, no hand or things like that. I think you'll see more handicap type athletes, disabled athletes in Major League Baseball. I will. And not that it would give them an advantage. It would just be part of, just like somebody wears a helmet, just like somebody who gets his teeth smashed in, and some guys wear a mouth guard, some guys don't. So I think you're going to see more, you could see more of that in the future, and that's great.
Now, I mentioned Jim Abbott to Lou Terminello, and I remember I got to catch up with him at Queens College. So a little bonus for you here on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network, ADA Day, talking with Jim Abbott, the man who threw the no-hitter for the Yankees, about throwing the no-hitter with, just one arm.
Yes, talk about it really quickly and how you overcame adversity and became a really good pitcher in Major League Baseball.
Well, I grew up differently. I grew up in Flint, Michigan. Some might say that was an adversity. I grew up missing my right hand, but I had great people around me who helped me learn how to play, and ultimately I played in the major leagues.
And of course, no one will forget the no-hitter
sound clip for everything, as one Ryan Pagano might say. Thanks for listening to today's special on the Americans with Disabilities Act turning 34. We'll have more to come on the Alex Garrett Podcast Network.